Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the untamed journey of womanhood. Here, we tell the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, inspiring others to do the same.
From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we share triumphs, challenges, and the beauty of self-discovery. These are the stories of women blazing their own trails, breaking free, and blooming unapologetically.
Join us to connect, be inspired, and celebrate the power of women's stories. Together, let's rewrite the rules and embrace our wildness.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Christy Riley. Welcome to the show, everybody.
It's going to be wild editing this and not having to cut out the first 10 minutes of us saying random silly things into the microphone and then you saying, "Oh, are we recording?" And me saying, "Yes." Yes, we are. So
we jumped right in.
We jumped right. We were so ready.
We're ready. Ready. I feel like that's the spring energy right now. Like everything is like
Or
moving.
Also, it's because it's so much later in our day than normal.
That's true.
Like, I feel like we've been in like get it done mode all day. We've both
That's
been
true.
busy.
Yeah.
Meetings.
Yeah.
Event.
Right.
Things.
Right. My oldest bonus daughter, her last day of high school was today. So her award ceremony and her clap out was all today. We just came from.
Wow. She was emotional? Yes.
She was emotional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which she's not very emotional ever. So that was great. Yeah. To watch her get emotional was really sweet.
Do you remember your last day of high school?
I do.
Tell me about it.
Fairly celebratory.
Peace.
I was my senior class president, and despite all of that, I was still not emotional. I was sort of over high school. You know, there was a lot of clickiness and drama, and I would like to say that I was above all of that, but I was not at the time. So yeah, I was ready to be over it and to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was planning on going to nursing school and then ended up having a wild and crazy summer and got pregnant with my first child right out of high school.
Was not very long of freedom.
With my long-term boyfriend, but it is what it is. Yeah. So changed everything. What about you? Do you remember your last day?
I do. We had a senior breakfast. It was what it was. And it sounds like she has a clap out award ceremony. We did like a big breakfast thing and those like slideshows. I can't really remember if there was awards or not really.
Mm-hmm. When I tell you now that every little thing is celebrated, and there's a calendar at our school, and it was that way for Tide too, for the senior activities.
Wow.
And so it started in the fall. And it went all year, cap and gown. Like there's a whole senior thing that you had to follow. And it was a whole different spreadsheet. You would have loved it. Definitely, and don't love a spreadsheet. It was every date, every, deadline, everything mapped out. They do a sunset, they do a breakfast, they do all kinds of things. What is the senior tag, that game they play, all play a senior tag. Apparently there was, the senior prank thing is still alive and well. That happened the other night. Apparently there was a seething, not so happy superintendent email this morning because there's a whole field full of forks.
Oh God. See, I don't know. I remember there was a prank, but I just can't remember.
Yeah. I wasn't involved in that.
I don't even know. I
can't remember.
I was in so many activities. I was in choir and orchestra. So for me, it was a lot of the award ceremonies of the end of the year for those things anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's weird. I can't really recall it. I just knew that I would be going to college the next year. And I was just like,
freedom. I think that's what I was looking for too. I was like, I need to get out of my parents' house and be in my own place as quickly as possible. And although that did happen fairly quickly, it's not the way I was anticipating it to go down.
Down a little faster than you thought. Yeah.
Was not how I thought it was going to go, but I was grateful. I was ready to be done though. But it was I remember being sad at the end of our ceremony a little bit, just because I knew it would probably be the last time I saw a lot of those people. It's very much a very emotional, like, closing of a chapter that you really know. I mean, some people stay in the same town that they grew up in and see those people all the time and go to this Friday night football games every Friday. And a lot of my classmates are still in that same vein. They go every Friday night to the football. Like, they're still part of that community.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk about this probably on the podcast. We're going to record another podcast today, but talking about our journey and our spirituality journey, I feel like I just never really I knew that was a closing of a chapter and that I would not be a part of those people's lives anymore.
Yeah.
And that's somehow I just intuitively knew that was done.
This was it for you.
Yeah. And we moved around a lot. So I never really felt a sense of like grounding. Stan and I were just talking about that on the way back from Haley's last day, is that she went to preschool here. She went to all the way, K through 12. So all the kids that we see, although we don't know them anymore, she doesn't necessarily hang out with them, but all those kids Stan's known his whole life and through daycare and the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
And so I never got that experience. We moved a ton. So I never had that experience of being in a solid community that, like I had just gotten there in this 8th grade in the school district that I graduated from. Yeah. So I didn't have those deep rooted connections, and we moved every couple of years. I was in a new school when I was growing up. So I never really had that sense of like,
it's so strange because it feels like, I went to elementary school, middle school, high school with the same people, you know, like the whole way through. But I also just kind of knew, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go.
Your energy was ready to bust out.
And I was like, this is just, it's interesting. And I'm like you said, we might talk about this later, but I just knew like I was ready to be away from a conservative small town saying things about people that I knew wasn't right. Like, I didn't have a lot of exposure to outside of my small town, but I just knew this ain't it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I knew I was going to a liberal arts college where it wasn't big, but it was very, very diverse and different. I was just really ready to experience that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Your soul was ready for that growth. You knew those weren't your peeps.
Yeah. I didn't know a single person that went to Heidelberg when I went either. Yeah. So everyone I knew was going to Ohio State or somewhere else. And I was like, this school looks like Hogwarts kind of.
I'm in.
I'm going there.
The strange people that don't want to go to swim in the normal river. You know what I mean?
I remember seeing everyone wearing like beanies and playing hacky sack. And I was like, I'm in the movie Clueless. This is awesome. Everyone's listening to alternative music. Everyone here has like the coexist stickers on their car.
An edgy.
So edgy. Everyone's smoking cigarettes. Very cool.
Yes. Yes.
I stand by that.
I'm home.
Yeah.
I have arrived. These are my people.
Yeah. So I'm excited for my niece to experience college. It's amazing.
She's excited. University of Pittsburgh. Here she comes. Yeah. So she's real excited.
Anyway, our guest today, I am so pumped for.
I know.
Liz.
Liz, we heard of Liz because a friend of ours hired her to do a cat reading for her.
Yeah.
Psychic reading. Like a psychic reading with her cat. And her cat's not dead. Her cat's very alive.
Yeah.
But Liv can communicate with them. And they raved and raved about their reading.
Yeah.
And so they were so excited, and that it was emotional to hear what their cat had to say. And then I looked she has a podcast as well called PsycKicks. And it's all things metaphysical and spiritual. So we're actually going to record on her podcast right after this, but we wanted to have her on and she agreed, and we can't wait to talk to her.
So excited.
Liv, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I was so excited that you agreed to come on. We heard of you through a friend of ours who got a gift certificate for you to do a psychic reading with her cat.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Dee Dee. And she was so excited afterwards. And this cat is like the dearest, most treasured thing in her whole life. She loves this cat more than life itself. She adores this cat. So for you to talk through your medium and tell her what the cat is thinking and what she likes and doesn't like and communicate to her was the greatest gift. She was so excited.
That's the nicest thing that I could ever hear as like a review. I remember when you reached out and you said Dee Dee was the one that had the reading. I went back and because a lot of times when I'm doing readings, if you make another reading with me, 9 times out of 10, I'll remember your name, but not what the reading was about because I'm channeling. So like the energy goes through and I mean, I'm there, but sometimes I'm not. So right. I don't necessarily remember Dee Dee's reading, but I did look up to see that it was a pet psychic, and that makes me happy because it's one of my favorite readings to do.
He was so excited.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started in all of this. Like, when did you first realize you had a gift?
So I was about 8 years old, and I was playing at my dad's apartment because my parents are divorced. So we did the whole like split parenting thing, right? And I used to see people outside in the field in the tree that I would play in without any faces, and they would just be standing there. It's like, when old newspapers, right? You smudge the letters, it still looks like an A, but it's the specifics of it are gone. That's how I used to see people. So they looked fine, but their faces looked like the smudge marks. And I remember telling my dad about it, and he was like, oh, no, it's no big deal. Well, then I went home and I told my mom about it because the person that I kept seeing at my dad's house, I would see at the top of the stairs at my mom's house. So imagine like having yeah, right? Imagine having your 8-year-old daughter come up to you and be like, I saw this person that dad didn't know anything about. Now he's at the top of the stairs. So at that point in time, my mom had to talk to me about it. But the kicker is my mom's also a medium. But up until that point, she had never done anything to learn more about it or develop her skills, anything like that. She just thought that the things that she experienced were normal up to a certain point. And then after that, she's like, oh, when people tell you stories about their past loved ones, you don't get more information about them. And the people that were talking to her, her friends, they're like, no, that's not normal. She's like, okay. So she just ignored it. But then when her 8-year-old daughter came up to her and said, I'm seeing people standing there just quietly with almost no facial features, she's like, okay, I have to figure this out. And that's really what led me to develop my abilities more because my mom actually started trying to answer questions that she had just decided to sort of sweep under the rug all the way up until her early 40s. So because of my mom's mediumship, I think I was lucky in a lot of sense because as mediums, I think there was a John Edwards thing that my mom used to quote. Yes.
That like gave me chills because I was going to talk to you about John Edwards today. That's so weird. Okay.
I don't know anything really about John Edwards. I've had people have readings with him, like in the big stadium format. I've had 2 people that I've talked to that actually got picked on, and they said that the way that I read is very similar to him. But my mom, and her delving into research of trying to understand herself in order to help me, she said that there was some documentary about John Edwards where he was going through like an institution with his mentor. And she said, there might be a lot of people that are like us that are actually in that institution. So I feel very lucky that I was able to have my mom who, instead of running away from everything, was like, look, this is something that we can deal with. We just have to figure out more about it. Let's do it together. And that's how everything started to shape into how it is now.
What a blessing. Yeah. I can't imagine a child not being told they're crazy. There's something wrong with you. That's not godly. We can talk about religion. Some of you like to, and what implications that may have with all of this, but like what that would mean for the child, right? Like not to have the support.
It's so weird that you would bring up John Edwards because I literally on the way here was like, I can't wait to tell her about this, like really niche thing, but my grandmother was very into all of this, and we would watch John Edwards constantly in his shows and him like having these conversations with people, and it gave me a lot of resources to then be able to, explore it more. So that's like incredible. And what part of the country were you guys in? And did your family, were they close at that time? Was your, mother's parents still alive? Like, what did your family lineage look like there?
Oh, well, we're from the East Coast, but my mom's actually adopted. So she does
Oh,
not
okay.
know where her mediumship comes from. She was actually able to find her birth mother, I think in the 80s, once in, because it used to be when you were adopted that the birth records were closed. And my mom was born in that era when the birth records were closed. So she couldn't find anything. Then eventually they opened up all of the birth records that weren't allowed to be accessed, and that's how she was able to find her birth mother. But she was never able to find her birth father. And when she found her mother did not want to talk to her. She said, "I don't want to talk to you." And she doesn't. She even asked, like, "Can you at least tell me who my father is?" And she refused. So it's
Wow.
been it's been interesting. My I don't really actually have a lot of grandparents, which is actually kind of funny. Because I talk to a lot of grandparents in the line of work that I do. But my grandparents, they passed when I was very, very young. So, divorced family, no grandparents. The only story that I have is from my mom. My great grandmother was born in like Pennsylvania area, and she grew up in like 1906 in a little town called Red Row. So she was Russian Orthodox, and my mother would go to church with her. And it was in the church pews on Sunday that my mom would talk to guests that were no longer actually at the church. She would turn around as a little kid and start talking to so and so, and she was with my great grandmother, her grandmother, and she'd say, "Stop! Like, stop talking! You're bothering this church service, yada yada yada." And then she would tell my grandmother who she was talking to, and my grandmother's friend who would go to church with her on Sunday was like, "That was so and so. They just had their like wake, their reception, whatever, like a couple months ago." So that's kind of the family dynamic, I guess. My great grandmother tried to take my mother to like the priests, and they would tell her like, "Oh, don't do this. You ignore it. You don't talk to those things. Those aren't real things." So that's really the basis of the family.
There needs to be an exorcist. Something is wrong with her. Or
Yeah,
she's talking
exactly.
to dead people.
And pun intended, my mother was actually the redheaded stepchild of the family. So,
Oh, that's awesome. She was a ginger too.
yes.
Yeah. It's so funny I'd not seen your picture for whatever reason. Like I'd not seen you in my mind. I had an older person in mind. I'm like, she's probably in her late 30s, early 40s, And then you started talking on the podcast. And I was like, wait, she's young. She's really young and she's already honing these skills. It's so great. I was really refreshed by that. I thought that was really great. So tell us about school. How did this impact you while you're in school at all?
I actually went to a very old university, and it was founded in like the 1700s as an all-girl school. So when I went to when I went to school, it actually did have an impact with me. The best thing is that most people who go to the school know that it's haunted. So much so that on Halloween they run haunted tours of the one floor of the original college building that no one really goes in anymore, right? So a lot of people have experiences, but really my experiences are different, which I think is interesting. So one of the buildings, it was the music hall for our school, was built in honor of a woman. This woman's son built the music hall specifically for her, and that is where, in between classes, when I wasn't living on campus, I would go to take naps because it was like a big giant church, 2-story like cathedral with like the seating up on the second floor, and almost no one went into the music building. But the woman who that building was in honor for, Mrs. Smith, she haunted the building reverently. It was said that if you were playing a piano recital or practicing your singing, whatever it was, if you sucked, she would walk down the aisle of the music room, and she would slam the door and you could hear her heels. So I never experienced that. But I always did feel like someone was watching me when I was in that building. And just, mediumship wise, I would sort of think out like, I just need a nap in between this semester and then, next semester. It's the warmest building. My car's too cold. I have to drive almost an hour to go back home, and then I have to go to work. So please, will you just leave me alone and take a nap? I promise I won't sing terribly. And then I would feel the presence sort of go away.
Thank you.
Wow.
I just needed to communicate that to you. Thank you very much for your grace.
Exactly. Thank you for letting me just bunk here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you go to college for? Like, what was your major?
I actually have a bachelor's degree in biology. I wanted to become an equine and large animal vet, and I did about 2 years of internship, like vet tech, supervised vet tech work with a equine veterinarian. And emotionally, it was too hard for me. I didn't like the politics of the veterinary world. So I finished out my degree and I was like, well, I'll figure out what to do after this. And yeah.
At that point, could you communicate with animals?
At that point, I didn't know I could communicate with animals. So ever since I was, young, the 8-year-old, that's when I started to understand that psychically I could see people, but they made me nervous. I always had this anxious feeling when I knew a soul was around, and I would ask them, because spirits know, see, hear, and feel everything. So you don't necessarily have to verbally communicate anything to them. You can just think it in your head. Talking to souls is very much like how prayer works, if that's something that you believe in.
Yeah.
So I would just ask any souls if I felt them around me, or I would see them like, please go talk to my mom. She can actually talk to you. You're just making me nervous. Can you go away?
Stop lurking.
Yeah, stop lurking, right? If you want help, there's the help department.
Yeah.
I'll just ring the bell for you. But it wasn't until I was probably in my 3rd year of college that I realized that I could talk to animals. Every little girl, I feel like, or almost every little girl, probably little boys too, wish that they could talk to animals. I remember going to like a Renaissance fair with my dad when I was little, and we got little pendulums or like pendants that people made out of clay, and he got the prosperity money one and I got the animal communicator one. And I remember believing so much when I was little. I was like, if I believe hard enough and I wear this, I'll talk to animals. But it wasn't until like my 3rd year of college, I was working as a car receptionist, and one of our salesman's girlfriends came in with their little tiny dog. His name was Jasper, and he just looked like a little trash gremlin of a dog. He's like this little mutt with like scraggly black hair, and he was just so ugly that he's cute. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting behind the desk, and his girlfriend came in with the dog, and I was just doing whatever. And I had these intrusive thoughts about going to a park and standing on top of a rock, and I could see the trees and I could smell everything. And then I was thinking about eating one of those greenie treats,
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, these are not my thoughts. I'm thinking about this chemistry quiz that I have to take in a couple days. So I turned around to this woman and I was like, did you take Jasper for a walk today? Did you go here? Did you go there? And she showed me pictures of him standing on the rock that he was telling me about. I said, does he usually get like a greenie treat after you guys go to your walk? She goes, how did you know? And I was like, I think your dog is intrusively in my thoughts right now.
You told me.
Exactly.
He loves them.
It was the wildest experience ever. And at that day, I was like, thank you, God. I can talk to animals.
So the pendulum finally worked after all this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine being a vet tech or a vet and being able to communicate with animals?
Well, it was I thought about that often when I was doing internship hours all the time. But the equine vet that I was following, she's actually very Catholic and not very okay with mediumship. So I always just kept it to myself. But when we did work on horses, I would always just energetically or intuitively think and try to feel what was going on. But it wasn't really until after I had stopped doing that I feel like the communication aspect came back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was really cool.
Wonder if that was divinely.
Yeah.
Like that job just is not really like the things that you have to do as a vet, right? Like, I don't know. I think it would be a hard thing if you could actually communicate with them too, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it would be really overwhelming when they're in pain, they're coming there and like having to hear those thoughts. I feel like that would be pretty difficult.
I think it would be specific to the animal psychic themselves, because I know everyone receives information differently. But most of the time, if I'm talking to someone during a pet psychic reading, I always say, I'm not a veterinarian, so take this with a grain of salt. But if you want to, go talk to a veterinarian. Usually when animals give me information about pain or ailments that they have, it's actually not overwhelming. It comes through in very mild ways. So sometimes we talk about the 6 psychic senses. That's what spirit and animals use to communicate with me. It's kind of It's kind of as if you think of it like an input device. If you were to push a button, then you get like a V on a keyboard. So when I'm channeling energy, it's almost like certain psychic buttons are pushed to give me specific stimuli. So if an animal has a headache, I'll have like a 1% feeling of what it is really like, and then they'll give me more additional supporting information.
Okay.
So it
That's
might
awesome.
depend on the pet psychic.
Yeah. And so how does that differ, or how is it the same from when you do the same work with people, right? So do you channel the same way? Is it different? Like, how does that download work?
I'm so excited you asked that question because I've been trying to figure this out myself. Usually when I talk to souls, and again, every medium's going to be different, but I always feel their energy on my right-hand side. That's how I discern that they're in heaven or spirit, whatever you want to call it, the energetic frequency in which souls reside. But when I talk to animals, I perceive the information on my left-hand side, and that's how I discern the difference between psychic and mediumship things. Psychic information usually I perceive on the left-hand side. Now, I do tell people, though, when I do pet psychic readings, that I'll get thoughts, images, feelings, and emotions that I recognize as not my own. So a lot of the times when animals talk to me, I'll see things from their perspective. So like one of my funniest or favorite stories is I talked to a Pomeranian who did not like his owner's ex-boyfriend and specifically used the red and white shoes that he used to wear and the smell of his cologne to tell me who he was, because that's what he saw was mostly his shoes and would smell his cologne, right?
Yeah.
That is hysterical.
This is from my point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So, but the thing that bothers me, and I haven't been able to quite understand yet, is that when I receive information about animals, I say there's mano y mano, so things from their point of view, their perspective that they've gone through and they understand. But then the other part, it really is more psychic. It's almost as if the information comes omnipresently. So if you're asking about what can you do to better your animal's quality of life, et cetera, things like that, it may be an answer that isn't something that they've experienced before, but it still comes on behalf and for the benefit of them. So I haven't been able to necessarily discern where that information comes from or how, but it is not directly from them, which is what you think only a pet psychic would do, is just direct information from them.
Right.
Isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah, it is
So
interesting. It is interesting. Almost like there's, I don't know, there's the thinking brain and then the soul.
Yeah, the perceiving.
You know what I mean? And those are the thinking brain could be, I don't like that, and I don't like his shoes, and this is what I'm perceiving. But the soul is a different entity altogether.
Higher
And maybe-
vibrationally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the difference with mediumship is that's usually when you're talking to someone who has passed, correct? Just for people listening.
Correct, yes. And that's why I discern the difference between mediumship, which is people that are past or pets that have passed, and then psychic, which is things in the physical world, stuff that are things that are happening now in the here and now, and things that are in the, living.
And how do you, for your own sanity and mental health sake, have you had to learn, I guess I should say, to tune in and tune out of those things so you're not constantly getting bombarded with those messages?
Well, that's a good question that I get a lot, but it's for me, mediumship isn't something that's always on. I've met someone who was like that, where it never turned off. It was more like there was two tabs running at the same time the whole time, and it was just she was looking at both of them. But for me, it's mediumship and the pet psychic stuff is more so just always on in the background. And if I want to listen to it, I just turn up the volume. And if I want it to go away, then I just ignore it and turn down the volume. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the frequency is available to you if you want to tap into it, but otherwise, you can dial it down. I think people take a lot of cues from what they see in movies when it comes to this and think that it's just overwhelming, like maddening, like voices, and just so hard to live your everyday. And I will love to demystify that a little bit here for people that are listening of, this is like a skill that you've had to hone in on and learn how to, practice in a way and tap into in a way. And I also am curious of your thoughts. Is many people capable of this, do you think? Do you think this is something that certain people are born with? What are your thoughts?
I think that everyone has psychic abilities, but whether you want to deem yourself a psychic or a medium is going to be up to you based on the capabilities that you have in those abilities. So I think the amount of psychic abilities and to what extent is going to be unique and individualistic to you. You know, like some people have to learn how to sing. And even though they have all of the right teachers and they do it forever and ever and ever, they only reach a certain point. But then you have some Joe Schmo walking down the street and they can sing opera right out of their pocket.
Yep.
Right.
I think psychic abilities and mediumship work the same. It's just some people are like, I'm sure there's people out there that do things completely different than me and even better than I can. And that's just who they are and how they work. And then other people are doing all of these courses and quizzes and workshops trying to hone their psychic abilities, which is great. But I think that it only goes up to a certain point for everybody. And that's going to be dependent on just who you are naturally.
Everybody's different, even the famous ones, right, that we're watching in TV shows and that has their own TV shows and stuff. Like their ability to tap in is usually, their methodology is usually different.
Yeah, very different. I think there was Doris Stokes was a medium, and she was only clairaudient because we have the 6 psychic senses, right? They're synonymous to your 5 physical senses. So see, touch, taste, hear, smell. And then the 6th one being claircognizance, which is just knowing things, which is what a lot of people talk about. They're like, I don't know how I knew my grandma was going to die, but then 2 days later she did, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But Doris Stokes, she only heard people talking, which is crazy to me because I've watched recordings of her and she's just like this little old British lady. She's adorable. And she has books called like Voices in My Ear, which I haven't read. I just wanted to see what it looked like when she was channeling because everyone, you can tell when they're channeling, and she only hears people in her ear, but like physically. Because there's different ways you can perceive clairaudience, which is psychic hearing. Usually the way that I perceive it is just in my head. So I hear someone in my own monologue or someone else's voice, but I never actually physically hear them outside of me, which is crazy to see another medium experience that, but you don't hear anything.
And it's so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, whether you call it intuition or, like just like you said, I don't know why I knew my grandmother was going to pass away, but I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
People don't necessarily associate that, as listening to your intuitive gut. What does your gut say, as being psychic? But really, you're tapping into that energy.
When you're building your business around this, right? So I assume that you took a leap at some point to say, I want to do this to help people and I'm going to get paid for my skill to do this. What has been difficult for you as you've kind of tried to build this brand for yourself?
The most difficult thing for me, I would say so far, is still walking up to people and saying that I'm a medium.
Okay.
You would think, because I've been doing this professionally for 5 years. I started originally just as Olivia the medium because I loved, did you ever, there's a book called All Creatures Great and Small and All Souls Bright and Beautiful.
Yes.
That is my favorite book ever. And it's about a veterinarian named James Harriet, I believe. And I still, because I wasn't going to be a veterinarian and I was sad that I didn't pursue it. And some days I still am sad that I didn't go into veterinarian school because it's just a lot of feelings about it. But I still love helping people. And when I learned that I could talk to animals, I was like, okay, I can still help people and animals, but just in a different way, not with the same politics as veterinary medicine. And I loved and cherished just the fact that he could go into people's houses and into their life and into their world and sit down with them and meet them as humans and help them in a way and then be like, okay, great. Now I can leave you hopefully more fulfilled and better than when I first arrived and then go home. So that's why I started doing readings on my own. I also really wanted to have a family, and I grew up in a divorced household and I never ever wanted that for my children. And I always wanted one of the parents to stay home, whether it was my husband or myself. So that's why I started doing readings so that hopefully I could have just a supplemental income for the rest of the family. And then starting a business completely just snowballed into something that I never thought it really would. But I still struggle the most with talking to people and saying, hi, my name's Olivia and I'm a medium. Because unless you approach me as a businesswoman, you would think you always want to sell yourself. You always want to sell your brand. But I still struggle with selling myself. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, we talk about imposter syndrome almost every single episode. And no matter what it is, no matter if it's a skill you've had since you were a kid, whether it be art, whether it be this, what, you know, whatever it is. And in general, women have a really hard time taking ownership of, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. And I'm good at it. And I deserve to be in this space. And again, it doesn't really matter what that is. It's just a common experience I feel like we all share.
Yeah. I'm more so scared though about the ridicule of it, of the like hiss, burn her type of thing, you know?
Right. The witch trials were real, right? Were real.
At one point, yeah.
Right. You know, that was a real thing in all of our genealogy, you know, like those, I think we all come from those women and those of us who have these talents, not that we don't all have the talents, like you said, but I think people that are in touch have some lineage attached to that. And so there might be real epigenetics involved of you being like, are you a safe person for me to say this to? Or are you going to accept that? Or are you going to think that I'm weird? Or we were just talking about this. I would love to get your take on it, is that, you know, readings on TikTok are like all the rage, right? Like lots of people are showing up in this world on major social media platforms. It's not mainstream anymore. How do you feel about that?
I haven't been on TikTok in a while, just because, you know, TikTok was going to be banned. And then even though I'm a content creator, I still have my mom in the back of my head going, put the phone down. You need to live in the moment. Don't take a picture. Just remember it, which is probably the second hardest thing besides just coming out cleanly and saying, hi, I'm a medium. And yes, I do this for a profession, which a lot of people are like, if you do that as a profession, shouldn't you just be giving it away? And I'm like, oh gosh, okay. I understand where you're coming from, but no. So with the mainstream, I mean, I don't know. I'm always very skeptical of people when they say that they're mediums. Which is actually very funny because I am a medium. Well, the only time I've ever gotten another reading from another medium, though, I walked up to her. I was at a psychic fair promoting myself in the business, and she was doing psychic readings, and she was an older woman. So I was like, okay, I feel safe. You know, I really want to get a reading. I want to talk to my grandmother and some other people that I've never really gotten to meet, but I know so much about. And I said, listen, I got a booth across from you. He says you talk to dead people. I talk to dead people. Do you really talk to dead people? And she's like, yeah, sure. I paid $65 for her to tell me absolute malarkey. Absolute malarkey. And at the end of it, I cried, not because it was beautiful, but because I was so just frustrated with the stuff she was talking about. So I don't know. I would say take it with a grain of salt. I do think that the readings that people do where they're like, if you're coming across this is for you. I think there's a 50% algorithm, and I think there's a 50% yes, that could be a reading for you. But you also have to think about the confirmation bias. I always say take things within the spiritual community with a grain of salt, because it whether you're talking about religion or spiritualism, or doing the readings on TikTok, you know, yes, things can be true, but it's always just perspectives of people. Does that make sense? Am I explaining this in a good way?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly.
I wouldn't sensationalize it.
Yeah. I think that's what I was telling Christy. It's hard for me, as someone who's always grown up around this. Like I didn't even know my great grandmother did birth charts and all of these things until way after her death. Right. Like I didn't know her in that capacity, and no one talked about it. And then immediately when you came on, I was like, yes, right? Like this is real vibe, real energy of someone who genuinely has been through this experience, and it's very authentic. And I think that's what's hard is you have a huge community now online of no hashtags. If this video comes up on your screen, you were meant to see this. And it's the most broad thing. And now I'm not saying that still can't help someone, right? Like maybe they're having the worst day and a TikTok person pops up and says things are going to be okay, and that gets you through. That's also okay and beautiful. You know what I mean? But it's definitely way more mainstream now than it ever has been. And it's refreshing to meet someone like you. And I know, like we mentioned, Dee Dee had that great experience with you. And I think people really need that in life.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, like for example too, because you were talking about the TikTok readings, there was one woman that I've become friends with, and she's closer in my age. She's also a YouTuber. Her name is Amanda Ray. And I had only seen her through her videos and yes, like the collaborations she's done with other paranormal investigation teams. And I always had like a little bit in my heart. I was like, I'm skeptical. And then I actually got to meet her, and she's just a fabulous, lovely person. And we've done a couple paranormal investigations together as well. And she actually sees people clairvoyantly, so psychic seeing in front of her. But I never see people, not since I was 8. That used to scare me. So I asked my spirit guide, spirit, whatever you want to believe in, to not show me things physically because it's just a no-go, Chanjo. But I see them in my mind. So if you were to like envision a flower, can you guys see a flower in your mind? Okay, because not all people can, which Amanda can't. Hence why she sees people physically, but I see them in my mind's eye. So it's always fun when we go to a location and she'll be like, "Oh, there's someone that walks in the room." And then I'll look the other way because she thinks it's funny that I do it differently. And I'll be like, "Do they look like this?" And she's like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "How do you do that?" So I think if you do just connect with someone, like you said, that's probably the best way to see if what they want to say or what they have to share is unique and authentic.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the paranormal investigations that you guys do or that you've been a part of.
Oh, the paranormal investigations. See, that's the funny thing is I am a giant scaredy cat when it comes to that stuff with all the equipment and investigation things. Absolutely. It took me so long to actually want to go on. Well, it took me a long time to get used to going on to investigations. I love old buildings. My mom used to be a real estate agent, and she used to take my brother and I with her when she would do like the walkthroughs before the showings. So I have an affinity for old places. But when it comes to the like jump scare type of stuff, I'm not about it.
I'm with you.
I think maybe one of my favorite places was the Wilson Castle. It is actually like a giant mansion in Vermont. It's beautiful. The guy who, I think he was the third owner of it, he was an officer. I forget his name, but he worked with, who's the person that invented telephones or like radios, the mobile guy?
Something Bell.
I don't think it was Bell. I could be wrong. Anyways, he worked in radios, but the house is really beautiful. And the funniest thing was we were doing the walkthrough with the owners who are now using it for paranormal tours. And the owners actually are the granddaughter of the man that used to own it. So she grew up there every summer with her grandparents in this giant castle. And there was this big staircase that you go up, like a circle spiral kind of cathedral staircase. And I felt like I could perceive this man. And he had like gray hair, a little bit of a pot belly. He kind of looked disheveled and I don't want to say run down, but he had like a very funny, quirky, like that uncle that's like, "What do you have on your shirt?" and then hits your nose sort of sort of vibe. And I went up the stairs and everyone's listening to the tour and I was tuning into him and he stood on the end of the staircase and then he like grabbed his chest and fell down it like some theatrical person. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, there's some man that's messing with me right now and I don't appreciate it. And he kept coming up behind me and I could feel him and he was like, "Boo, you're scared. Boo, you're scared." And I was like, okay. So I finally asked, I said, does anybody know about a man who was like, he makes me feel like he was a maintenance man or someone that was like a groundskeeper and he thinks he's funny and he keeps showing me himself falling down the stairs. And the woman who was the granddaughter that owned the place, she goes, "Oh, that's so-and-so. He was the maintenance man and 7 years ago, he had a heart attack and fell down the stairs and died."
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Like, well, he's here haunting me right now.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites just because he was so funny about
That's
just
awesome.
being literal about how he died.
Let me do a quick reenactment.
Yeah, he was very funny. He took everything very lightheartedly.
When we meet with Sarah, who is one of our most endearing, lovely spiritual friends, and she clears spaces and really asks for spirit guides to really block entities from entering spaces and rooms and ourselves. And Have you or do you ever come in contact or around or aware of these negative entities, darker energies, if you will, maybe?
Yes. Yes, but I don't know how to clear spaces, which is something that I wish I could learn from someone that knows how to do it, at least not formally. Usually I take the approach of what I call like the Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes approach of like, you can't cross this line because, everything is energy.
Yeah.
And most of the things I've learned from watching others, what it boils down to is using physical things is just to bolster or embolden your energetic boundaries that you already have. So what would be a good example of one of the more negative entities that I've seen? I went to the Conjuring House, like the actual Conjuring House.
Oh, wow. Terrifying.
Those are my favorite movies. They're my comfort movies. I watch them just
They're
wanting
your
to pick me up.
comfort movies?
I
I'm
love them.
sorry, what?
Oh my gosh, me and Noah watch them constantly.
Oh
we watch
my
all of them
God.
a million times.
I
I'm
can't
sorry.
watch any scary movies.
This. Okay. I gotta get comfortable.
Nuts.
Okay, what happens?
I'm also terrified by the fact that you said that those are your comfort movies.
Right.
Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm like, oh, I do think they might have been like really crazy people, but those movies, love them.
Oh my
That's so
God.
I think I've only ever watched the first Conjuring House movie, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I can't watch scary movies. I'm a
Me
giant
either.
baby.
With you. No.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, at the Conjuring House is sort of like a conduit place of a lot of things. It mirrors the things that you fear the most and then bounces that energy back at you. I do think that there's one main poltergeist energy that is more defined and formed, which for me just means that it's been around for a lot longer. So it's more of a solid energy when you think of energy being solid. But we went to the Conjuring House and we were upstairs in the middle bedroom because there's you go up these really tiny little stairs that if you were to trip you'd probably die on. But there's one bedroom, the middle bedroom, and then the third one, and then there's stairs that go on either side to sort of loop around the house because it was actually built in 3 sections. But anyways, the second story, middle room, I was talking to just normal people that lived at the Conjuring house at one point in time. One guy was telling me about how he used to take care of pigs on the farm. And there was another woman who used to be like a midwife or a doula who would help people that traveled to that house in order to actually have babies because she was more centralized at that house just because they were more well-to-do than the rest of the people that lived around the place. And the Conjuring House is known for all of the big scary things that are there, which they are. But if you ignore them, I found out we had a little REM pod sitting on the rocking chair in the middle, like in the corner of the room. And do you guys know what a REM pod is? No? Okay. So a REM pod is like this little cylindrical sort of device. If you buy them on websites, they're usually like red and black, but they have a little antenna and certain buttons to change the frequencies. But they detect electromagnetic frequency, temperature change, as well as like proximity to the sensors on it. So it gives you all of those little things. So if a spirit or an entity wants to interact with the REM pod, depending on if they're changing the temperature, touching the REM pod, or using electromagnetic frequencies and disrupting it, it'll send off little beep, boop, bop, bop sounds, right? So we're sitting there and I'm just casually talking to some human souls that want to talk about what their life was like at the Conjuring House in like freaking 1683, right? Well, we weren't paying attention to the poltergeist. So it set off the poltergeist, or not the poltergeist, it set off the REM pod so loud it actually broke our REM pod for the rest of the night.
Wow.
So it was like furious about being ignored.
Absolutely furious. And the weirdest thing was like clairsentiently, which is psychic sensations, which a lot of people say like, I'm an empath, right? So you feel other people's emotions. Clairsentience is also physical feeling. So if you ever get like chills or feel like there's someone that like touches your hair or is standing next to you, that's clairsentience. The craziest thing was I was sitting on the floor and I just felt like this big sort of rumbling sensation come up from the bottom of the floorboards and into the REM pod. And then it started going crazy.
Well, I imagine most people come there searching the poltergeist. Like that's their interest, right?
100%.
And so now you're sitting here having this conversation with the others that are there, and they're like, whoa, wait a second. This is not how this normally goes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna create some chaos. That makes a lot of sense to me, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy town.
Is it a house in Connecticut? I can't remember.
Rhode Island, technically.
Rhode Island. Okay. Yeah.
I would recommend going. It's really, I like it from a history aspect. The house, I think, is just fun to go poke around. But if you guys get some paranormal equipment, it's always fun.
Yeah.
So the REM pod is really like a ghost detector.
Yes.
Yeah. That's literally from the ghost busters.
We watched like what's his name? Zach whatever.
Zach Baggins.
Yes. I am obsessed with that show. And like watching them do these ghost investigations, I like can't get enough of it. Like it's so fascinating and interesting to hear what they hear, and you know, whether it's a production or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, like that house, and then the demon house. Did you ever watch one about that? I think they had a whole spin-off show just about this like devil house. Anyway, I'm going on a really long thing. But I just feel like these houses that have these entities that stay there and live there, that energy has to be so strong to continue to feed there. I know that you mentioned this too. Like it's just like a vortex for a lot of different things happening.
Yeah. Because I mean, the way I understand negative entities is if you no longer believe in them, then they can't exist because they need your energy in order to perpetuate their existence. So when you think about poltergeist, the actual the word itself translates from German into noisy ghost. So they make a lot of noise like a kid in order to evoke a reaction out of you. They'll scream and kick and cry just like the poltergeist at the Conjuring house. And if you listen to them and you get scared enough, then they get more powerful and bigger and scarier and can turn into more solid, scary entities. What people would say is like a demon or anything like that. But if you ignore them and you're like, no, you're just a child, then they don't have anything at the Cece's Pizza Buffet of paranormal activity.
Not the Susie's Pizza Buffet.
That's a throwback. I thought you were young, Liv. What's Cece's? It's been a while. Maybe you have them. They're not around here. They haven't been around here for a while.
They haven't been around in a long time, but I do remember the macaroni and cheese pizza, and that was my favorite.
Oh yeah,
nice.
That was a good one.
Nice.
What services are you currently offering to people right now? Like, what can they get from you?
Currently, I offer psychic medium readings, pet psychic readings, plant psychic readings, and house readings.
Tell us about the plant. I have not heard that before, so I would love to know more about that.
Right? Okay. Buckle up. So plants,
Ready.
even though they're what biology calls sessile beings, meaning that they don't move, they're just rooted in one place, they have the tea on everything. I don't understand how it works. That's still something that I don't necessarily understand. Like, I can explain to you guys my thesis on how mediumship is plausible, but I cannot explain to you how a tiny potted plant that lives in a woman's bathroom knows that she was at the checkout at Aldi's, put down a plant that was going to be like one in the bathroom as a friend for her, and then chose not to buy it. And then the other plant in the bathroom that wanted a friend was telling me the tea about it.
Dang.
Exactly.
What? That's crazy.
Like, when we go back to the pet psychic readings, how I get like the more omnipresent psychic readings, so like information about the animal, not necessarily directly from them. Plants have some sort of connection to spirit, the universe, I don't know, the energy around, but they know everything. And I don't have like a theory on it.
See, I am more apt to understand, because I'm obsessed with mushrooms, the mycelium network, and how the mycelium network can literally communicate and help bring nutrients to trees that are struggling. Like the network within that in and of itself is so complex and so interesting to me that it makes sense to me that plants would be able to perceive and have this information. For some reason, I'm like, yes, That does track to me. Pets, I'm like, they're crazy. How do they know this stuff? But the plant thing, I'm like, oh, I'm really interested in this because of how much research they've been doing on plants. And even, I don't know if you've seen that they've been listening to plants by putting like the prongs
synthesizers
on them. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is fascinating.
Yeah. I actually
I'm
wrote
hoping
my
AI figures out how to talk to them.
We'll see.
I actually wrote my
in a language that we can just have a conversation. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. I actually wrote my thesis dissertation on rhizospheres, which is the small fungal networks around the roots of plants and how they talk to each other. And then all of a sudden, all of the stuff, like, I don't want to say 5 years later, started coming out about how plants talk to each other. But I mean, I like what you say about the mushrooms and the rhizosphere networks that they connect through trees and things like that. But it still doesn't help me understand how, like, I don't know.
Right. How they know about a planet Aldi's that they couldn't
Exactly.
see, aren't connected to. You're not even in the ground. You're in a pot. You're transient. Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense. I talked to another girl. She was younger and she had like 5 or 6 little cactuses on her window. And one of the cactuses was telling me about how the dog goes out and plays in the pool. And I was like, do you have a dog that jumps in your outside pool? Do you have an outside pool? And she's like, how do you know these things? I'm like, the plant is telling me. The plant gave me the tea on this girl's relationship, how she's best friends with one boy, but then the boy that she actually likes isn't her best friend, but her best friend that's a boy is in love with her and she just doesn't understand it. It was
Oh my God. Oh my God. This is fantastic. They're like watching their own little soap operas all the time.
Exactly. People
This is
ask
awesome.
me, oh, well, does my grandfather know about like my relationship with my husband? You know, like wink, wink, smile, smile. And I'm like, no, you got to be worried about that ficus in the corner right there.
That's all your house plants.
Oh,
I keep getting more of them too. I don't know what's happening, but both of us are like, we have both become weird plant ladies.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything weird about that.
No. And the older I get, the more I need them around me, like more and more and more of them. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
They put off good energy.
Oh, they do for sure. And it's funny and we'll save this for your podcast too. But the more spiritually awake I become, the more I want plants around me all the time. So
interesting.
Yeah, I would kill everything that came into my house when I was younger. Everything. I could not keep anything alive. Ever. And now everybody's like, oh, you have such a green thumb. And I was like, I think they're attracted to me for different reasons. I do keep them alive. But also, I think that we're on a different vibration level now.
Yeah.
They get me now.
Yeah. I have a tree that I would love for you to talk to. We've named her Lucy. She's a giant sycamore tree. It's the reason we bought this farm.
Is she in like a backyard?
Uh-huh. We've named her Lucy.
She's pretty.
She's a giant sycamore tree. Yeah.
You said your dog was a boy, right?
Leroy, yeah.
Are they like multicolored?
He's gray and black, yeah.
Is he smaller or medium sized?
Yeah. Smallish. He's a big mini schnauzer.
Yeah.
But he's big for a mini schnauzer. He's a big mini schnauzer. So I would call him a medium-sized dog, yeah.
Do you know if there's another dog that's like tan and white and black?
Yes.
That's more of a medium-sized dog, bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lucy really likes Sophia.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's awesome.
Because I can see her from like the top on the ground, and she says that Sophia is nicer. Does Leroy bark a lot?
Leroy's an asshole, yeah. But you know, he's a hunter. He gets real excited and he's very territorial and barks and carries on. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah,
that's hysterical.
Do you have bird feeders out in the back too, where she is?
No, but possibly before we lived here, there could have been bird feeders. I would imagine there probably was.
Do you have flowers or something where there could be what is it called? Hummingbirds.
Yes.
Okay, because she says that she would like, I think there could have been bird feeders there before because she says hummingbirds are her favorite.
Oh.
Done, Lucy. Done. I'll do that for you. I'm so attached to this tree.
Do you sit underneath her and do meditations or something?
Yes. Yes. But we talk every day.
Okay.
Like I go out and I say, good morning, Lucy. And I rub her branches.
That's cute. Do you have like a grandmother that you talk to in spirit?
Yeah.
She just wants you to know that your grandmother listens, and she also helps send your prayers to your grandmother.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome.
That's really cute. She just shows me you sitting underneath her, and she like tries to, I mean, not that you really need it, but she enjoys that you talk to her grandmother underneath her, or your grandmother.
That's awesome. Yeah. Especially here. That's really, yeah. My granny, both my grannies would love it here. Yeah. Yeah. I say that all the time. I don't meditate. I just talk aloud because.
No, that's meditation.
Because that's what I do. No, you're right. I don't sit and meditate. I'm an active meditator. So I'm always doing things, but I'm like, oh, Granny, look at this. And so there's all these plants that are new to me at this house because we've only been here for a few months. And so now that we moved here right going into the winter, so I didn't know any of the vegetation here. And so I'm watching all these flowers and there's all these bleeding hearts. And the only time I've ever seen a bleeding heart is in my grandmother's house, my granny's house. And so when they came up, I was like, oh my God, Granny's here. You know, it was, they were planted before me. Like she didn't plant them, but it was really cool. It was just a lovely reminder. And I get reminded of both of my grandmothers here a lot. So yeah.
That's really cute. Sorry, I should have asked.
No, I cry every show almost. It's fine. All of my emotions are tears. So happy, sad, frustrated, all of them. So it's very easy to make me cry. No, I love it here energetically. I love it here. And she was the main reason. As soon as I sat under here, I was like, that's it. I don't care what it costs. This is the place.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
So if people want a reading from you, where can they book you? Where can they find you?
You're welcome. Well, if you want to find me, if you go on to metapsychicks.com, that's meta and then PsycKicks. I know it's spelled a little funny because we're your sidekicks to all things metaphysical. Metapsychicks.com. That's where you can find my services. There also will be, I'm working on this, but there's going to be exclusive services through Patreon. I used to offer them, but I had to take them down for a little while. But that includes past life readings, as well as aura readings, wing readings, and spirit guide drawings. So the aura and the wing readings are more, they're drawings. I will draw them for you, just like the spirit guides, but those will be the exclusive services offered through Patreon. But if you're not into that, metapsychics.com and anywhere on the internet at metapsychics. And Olivia the Medium, if you want to follow my more personal things.
Yes. And I've been enjoying all of I'm going to now listen to all of your podcasts. So I've been enjoying them a lot. And I love how you deliver information. So just the way you were listening to your tarot card reading ones and just the way you're delivering information and sharing as you are learning is really beautiful. And so you have a natural talent, in my opinion, in how you communicate information in a way that people really can understand it and connect with it. And I think especially in a world where it can be really edgy or that's weird, that's woo-woo, that's, all the terms that we get thrown around that can make people like, that's overwhelming or feels weird to me. I think you do a really beautiful job of communicating information that even people who are just starting to tiptoe in this world can really understand and benefit from the information that you're sharing. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate that. It's one of the things that I, as you listen to the podcast back, I've been sort of uncovering about myself of, I started out doing this with a friend, and then I felt like since the beginning I had to be an expert in this, and a lot of people just assume because I talk to dead people and because of the things I'm able to do, I am an expert in spiritualism, and that is not the case. Just like someone that's really good at singing opera may know nothing about music theory, they're just good at it. That's just what they're about to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just their gift. They just got given it.
Exactly, which is why I like to say I'm your sidekick to all things metaphysical. You come on the journey with me because I don't know that much about it, but I'm willing to learn because it's very interesting.
Carrying people and picking people up along with you as you're learning and developing. And and being in this world, I think it just creates a safe space, and it creates a space to hold for others as they're developing and learning. So yeah, just to echo Christy, really beautiful what you're doing. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Any women you want to shout out that have helped you along the way or that have inspired you?
My mom, of course. She's an acquired taste of character, and I love my mother. And without her, I would not be where I am. I was sitting trying to make sure I had good sound for you guys and figuring out all of the stuff that I've never really had to do on my own before. And she's like, "You're overthinking it. It's going to be fine. They're going to be great." One of them is called Juju by their grandchildren. She's like, "I am called Juju by my grandchildren." She goes, "It's going to be fine. It's meant to be."
Oh, that's
I love
amazing.
that energy. I love that.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
And you don't even realize, by the way, I don't realize my woo-woo side. And I think I have also not embraced it for a lot of my adult life because of exactly the same reason you don't want to introduce yourself as a medium, because you're not sure you want people to take you seriously. And I was a pediatric ICU nurse and I wanted people to take me seriously, right? But after you're in that world for so long, you see so many things that you can't explain. And we'll get into this, I'm probably in your podcast, but I've been embracing that more and more. And then my children look at me and go, you say juju a lot because you talk about I'm talking about energy. I was like, well, that's got bad juju or that's got good juju. And they're like, if you keep that up, we're going to have your grandkids call you juju. And I was like, that would be awesome. And to this day, that's what they call me, which is beautiful. So
yeah.
That's
and
fabulous.
it's just embracing my authenticity really all this time. And, and then your kids can reflect that back to you and you're like, didn't realize I said that all the time.
Well, and the one of the questions I've been getting asked a lot more recently is people will ask like spiritual guidance, because I'll do psychic medium readings, but I don't necessarily offer like training courses or like one-on-one stuff like that. I put a little note on my website that says if you want spiritual guidance, like you want to ask me questions, share your experiences, etc., then just book this reading. I'm not going to make a separate one because that's not my thing. But a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, I've been told that I have gifts and that I need to use them this way." And I'm like, listen. I know this might sound like the pot calling the kettle black, but you don't have to be a psychic or a medium or a tarot reader or just in the spiritual community in and of itself in order to use your gifts. Because I am sure as a pediatric ICU nurse, also, thank you for your service. I always tell nurses, thank you. I think nurses should be saluted like veterans because you guys really work your asses off and do crazy, crazy things. So thank you.
Thank you.
But you are using those psychic abilities in your career, no matter what it is.
Agreed.
You could be someone who makes art to someone who's a construction manager to someone who's an ICU nurse. You may not realize it, but those innate psychic abilities that you have, your intuitive gifts, are going to be used to absolutely make whatever it is that you do better, no matter what. So you don't have to do things just like me or like Amanda with her readings. It's always going to come through in your work, whether you know it or not.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
We will make sure people know where to find you to get these readings. And again, just thank you for the support you're giving people through their journey, because it's so, so important. We'll make sure also that we tag your Instagram so they can follow your beautiful personality as well. And get to know you as we are trying to.
Yes.
Gosh, we're already
enjoying
obsessed.
it. Love it.
We just started. This episode, all of our episodes are on iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.
And if it resonated with anyone or you think that it would resonate with friends and family, please share. Thank you guys. Love
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Liv.
Thanks for
It's been a
having
great
me.
conversation. We appreciate you coming on.
Of course. Anytime.